set up here and have our panel in just a minute. Here, let's get this going. Okay, that was great. I think the film is very thought-provoking, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of in the mood for fish tacos right now. I'm hungry. Exactly.
I always joke he really hates Hawaiian pizza. I was like, AJ, wow, you really...
Exactly.
really
Yeah.
hate it.
So, I mean, a lot to think about. And I think, the goal of what we want to try to talk about on this panel is just to answer your questions, get everybody thinking about what ranked choice voting means, how it can be enacted in different systems, and there's pros and cons to it, and we'll talk about all that as well. And we have some great experts here. Let me start at the end with Melinda Arons. Melinda, a longtime friend of me. She and I were both television producers together way back when, and she has gone on to do a lot in social impact filmmaking, and she has her own consulting business now, and she is a producer on the social impact campaign for this film. So we're delighted that she could be here with us to talk about that as well. In the middle here is Ruby Coleman, and she is soon to be a double AU alum. She is a graduating grad student in the Polycom program, and she is an undergrad here. She was an undergrad here at AU as well. She is currently the field educator for Grow Democracy DC Civic Education Fund. And most importantly for this discussion, she was a grassroots organizer for Rank the Vote, where she promoted the Yes on 83 campaign. And that campaign we'll talk about, that was the DC effort to initiate ranked choice voting. So she was very involved with that and can give us her thoughts on how that all came to be, as well as Lisa Rice here, who she is an independent political strategist, and she is certainly passionate about reform and political innovation. And she's a longtime board member of Unite America, which I mentioned is sponsoring the screening of the film. And they did the social impact for the film. And she also worked on that Yes 83 campaign for DC. So she will be able to share her insights on that as well. And I'm going to certainly save time for your questions. And I think we have some students from Susanna's class here, right? And Ruby, you were in the class last year on the women.
A few years
ago?
Yeah.
Okay, the women in political leadership. So we're glad that the class is here as well. Lisa, let me start with you because we have another clip from, I mentioned that this is a 30-minute version of the film. There's a longer version, and Lisa was featured prominently in that. And this is a clip, and I mentioned the DC Vote Yes on 83. Let's play that clip, and this is a scene from when that measure was approved by the voters, starring Lisa here.
They're usually ignored.
And guess what? We have 72%!
That was exciting time, right? And first, Lisa, if you could tell us a little bit about Unite America and what the goal of that organization is and how it relates to this discussion on ranked for ranked choice voting.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Unite America is a group of Republicans, independents, and Democrats that are dedicated to a more functional government. I have been an advisor. I was an advisor starting in 2016 and joined the board of directors in 2017. Over time, we have tried many things to try to make the government, our federal government, more functional. In 2018, we thought the path would be independent candidates for statewide races, either at the gubernatorial level or the U.S. Senate. To form a fulcrum, all you need is 2 or 3 senators who want to caucus together to help moderate the polar opposites. That didn't work too well because though many people identify as independents, it's very hard to vote for independent candidates. So we looked at, as the future went on, we looked at, well, what is motivating people, people in the House and the Senate to vote the way they do? And AJ talked about it in the movie because 87% of US House seats are safe and only 7% of people are voting in primaries, which is the only election that matters. You end up getting very few people electing people to these critical seats, and boom, what happens is there's so much polarization because people are so worried about being primaried that they get stuck in just serving the small base. One person who proved you can get unstuck was Senator Lisa Murkowski when she ran as an independent, and then 4 years later with the new system in Alaska, you know, they tried to primary her. She didn't get primaried. She went back again. And though you may not agree with all of her policy takes, she votes the conscience of more Alaskans than ever before.
Right.
So we support opening primaries so that more people can vote, whether that's in a place like DC where there are closed primaries, but if we can let someone who's an independent like me choose a ballot on primary day and vote, then you have 85,000 more people in DC who will be enfranchised, which is really exciting. I say that as an
is
independent
exciting.
because we made that law.
Tell us about DC
Yeah.
and give us the backstory and how that came about and what that means now for DC voters. And
Yeah.
DC voters here?
Any
Yeah,
note?
you guys
Yeah,
are going
there's
to be.
one,
Yeah,
yay!
there we go.
So in DC in 2021, there was a legislative effort to bring ranked choice voting to DC. It failed. It did not get out of committee, but there was still a lot of popular support. The politicians didn't want it. The ingrained politicians didn't want it, but the people wanted it. I had divorced myself from the Democratic Party in 2016, and I didn't realize that I disenfranchised myself and could no longer vote in DC primaries. I faced a fork in the road. I could either go back to being a Democrat, play the game, or I could change the system. I decided to change the system. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. I was like, wandering in the desert. What am I going to do? I don't know what to do. I guess I don't know. I got to tell you, I don't know what I was going to do. I just know I wanted to change things. And so the group who had been pushing for the legislative change said, we want to do a ballot initiative for ranked choice voting. Will you lead it? I said, no, I will not. I will, though, lead a ballot initiative that also opens primaries. And so we wanted to do the Alaska system, but in DC you cannot because the Home Rule Charter dictates that we have partisan primaries. So what we did was Initiative 83, which is ranked choice voting in the primary and general elections, and semi-open primaries, letting independents vote in partisan primaries. Independents like me would choose a ballot and we'd get to vote in the primary.
So you would choose one side or the other and vote on that ballot.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And we won.
Yeah.
72.89%.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
Ruby, tell us about your involvement because you were in there at ground zero on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started, as you said, with Rank the Vote. They were very kind of got the opportunity. They sponsored me to work on the SN83 campaign. And so I started that just during the summer of, I guess, summer 24, and then stayed on and worked on the campaign in several capacities, comms, volunteer management, anything that was needed at all given times, canvassing. And so that was an incredible experience, especially I think talking to AU students of there's a really easy way to get stuck in the AU bubble or just even the Northwest bubble. And so being able to be out in DC and talking to people across all wards, across all districts. I mean, we won every single district and every single ward. We got a super majority. And so hearing people tell me how much they wanted this change, how much they were striving for this change, and people who didn't know about the system, people who didn't know about ranked choice voting, when I explained it to them, they were like, so why don't we have that already? And so it was really exciting to see so many people ready and wanting a change and being able to ultimately deliver that to them.
And when are we going to see this in action?
June primaries.
Okay.
Yes.
And what will that look like?
So after a lengthy battle, so the council has decided for, as of right now, just to fund the ranked choice voting section or portion of Initiative 83. So that'll look like in the June 26 primaries, you will be able to now rank your vote. So when you're voting for your ANC, for your council member, for any other elections, you'll be able to rank candidates in order of preference.
Okay.
You can rank up to 5. You don't have to rank all 5, but you have the opportunity to. That was something that I think a lot of people had a little bit of a hesitation about of, I have to rank all of them? And I said, no, you get to rank up to 5. You get the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Melinda, this is obviously a new concept in the sense of, and it's confusing. So, talk about your role and social impact and why you all think it's important to try to get the word out about what this means, because I think the film did a great job of explaining it, but it can be confusing when you're looking at a ballot and you've got bubbles and scantrons everywhere, right?
Yeah, definitely. So generally speaking, film in general is an
Yes.
amazing tool for opening sort of hearts and minds, and that's a lot of the stuff that I work on, is how do you kind of get different types of media, especially in this modern information age where it's incredibly difficult to break through,
Right.
out into the country, depending on what issue you're trying to influence. And so one of the things that I think Unite America was excited about with this film, and that we've definitely seen, the original film premiered. Actually, you were at the premiere here in
Yeah.
DC about a year and 5 months ago, something like that. And so the original goal was basically just inject it into the bloodstream and demystify this process. Once people, as Ruby and Lisa have described, know it exists, they're very excited about it, whatever form that takes within whatever state. And, it does take a different form. You guys just described, well, this is what's possible here. And I think the idea, behind doing a documentary and then trying to get it out there as much as possible is just to even let people know. I think it's really important, especially for this audience and, students and educators. We are just trapped in this miserable cycle that we all, I think, feel right now of just, I don't think anybody would argue the system is working right now. We're literally on week 3 of a government shutdown. And so the idea of, what's the knee-jerk reaction? Well, oftentimes young people will say, I want a third party. That's certainly possible. That's a reform. But a lot of the times people don't even know that this reform exists. That 100 years ago, we did choose people a completely different way. It was chosen for us. Mm-hmm. And that we can always unrig the system. It's really one of the beautiful things about the country that's very easy to forget right now. So that was the sort of initial goal, was just sort of educating people that this exists and demystifying it for voters, because it is confusing. And even when you do the food analogy, it's confusing. It's not like halfway through the food one, even though I've seen this 40 times, I was like, wait, where are we? It is confusing.
Yeah.
It is confusing. But if you go to the idea that this is a very fair way to enfranchise the most number of voters possible, people do like that, and they want that, and they know that that's what small d democracy is for.
And the film, it does capture that tension between sort of the reformers and then those kind of entrenched political interests or the major parties. And we have another clip from Lisa talking about, who's opposing this kind of reform.
These elections are taxpayer funded, and so I believe really strongly that those of us who are paying the taxes ought to be able to vote in the elections. The opposition is entrenched politicians. The DC Dem Party is against us. That they are strongly opposed. But I will say the Republicans don't like us either. So when both parties are against you, you must be doing something right.
Very true, right? You must be doing something right. Talk a little bit, Lisa, how you sort of counter those arguments of the political parties. What's your argument against what they're saying? How do you kind of make the argument that this makes sense, and how do you get out? I mean, going up against political parties we know is tough, which is why independent candidacies are extra tough, right?
It's very tough, and it's tough in DC because we are in a super majority blue town. Right. Very tough. But what we found is when you go to people who have issues that they want solved by their elected representatives that are not being solved, that it's very simple for folks. We have, in 2022, half of the people who were sitting on our council, when we looked at their win rates in the primary, were hovering 26% of the vote, 30% of the vote, 36, 38%. Only half of them reached near 50. One of them really blew it away. But half of the people sitting on the council were in there only getting a third, I'll be generous and say around a third of the primary vote. And in DC, once again, the primary is the only thing that matters for most of the seats. And so when you're on the street, you talk to people about, would you like a system in which the people who are sitting there representing you are representing more of you? Yes, I would like that. Maybe they'd be, if more of us vote them in, maybe they'll be accountable to more of us. And so that is how we talk about it in a very introductory, preliminary way, not even talking about changing the system or how it changes. And then when you talk about ranked choice voting, we did not complicate it. Political scientists complicate it. We said, you rank things every day. When you look in your closet, you want to wear the blue suit, the black suit, and if you really want to wear the green suit, choose that first. But if it's at the cleaners, you're going to wear the black or the, when you start talking about it in terms, adults rank things every day. You go to a restaurant, you expect you're going to order, whatever, I don't know, a Reuben sandwich. They don't have a Reuben, you'll order a BLT. When you start talking to people about the things that they rank practically every single day, then the issue that's thrown up by a lot of politicians is, people can't get that. It's too difficult.
It's too confusing.
No, it's not. They rank every day. They rank every day before they leave the house. Every day.
What about similar arguments, Ruby, and I'm sure you heard this on the ground, that the confusing element, especially when it comes to older Americans or immigrant communities, maybe English as a second language, that it's going to be harder for them to participate in elections. It dissuade them. What did you see that on the ground, those kind of arguments when you were working on the initiative?
Yeah, I mean, those were definitely distributed.
Yeah.
But what I saw was, we spent a really, really good amount of time on education.
Yeah.
We did that on the campaign. We're continuing to do that now. Grow Democracy DC is educating people in DC about ranked choice voting ahead of the election. And so what we found out was just with enough education and with, being able to be properly explained, one of our amazing staff members worked, I wouldn't say exclusively, but consistently would go to elderly communities. She found that people really were able to understand the concept of ranked choice voting when she made it a bingo analogy. So it's, again, the process of comparing ranked choice voting and showing that you rank things in your everyday life. Again, as Lisa said, you have a first choice and a second choice for everything. For AU students here, you have your first choice of classes, but if you're on the wait list, you need to register for a second class.
So you really kind of meeting people where they are with the
Exactly.
analogies, which is really smart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think meeting voters where they're at,
Yeah.
hearing their concerns and being able to just listen and, participate more in a conversation instead of talking down to them was really effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that we did was have a sample ballot. So there
Yes.
wasn't a single conversation in which someone couldn't look at a sample ballot, either paper. I went to several universities and we had a simulation, online simulation.
Oh.
So depending upon your audience, so our lead educator just a few weeks ago was at the Congressional Black Caucus, and she had the audience rank female rappers. We change it depending
Depending
upon
on
the
the
audience.
okay.
Make it relevant.
Yeah.
But we don't have a single conversation without some sort of sample ballot.
Yeah.
And also, just to clarify, we
Yeah.
have these sample ballots in Spanish as well when we are going into languages that spoke different, or communities that spoke
Right.
different languages. Yeah.
Melinda, talk a little bit more about kind of the student aspect, because it's important for you all to educate young people on this as well.
Yeah, so the last
And people that are
year-
going to be running campaigns too.
Yes,
and working on
absolutely. So
campaigns.
last year, and it was really interesting because I'm a New York City voter, and after the New York City primary, which has been so wild, obviously we've got this election coming up next week. I actually attended a Unite New York event, and they were unpacking all of this, and I just thought, I was like, I can't believe this. I'm like going through my own process.
Right. Well, and explain for people that might not know how the New
Yeah.
York primary.
Oh, the New York primary was
worked
very
with ranked
interesting
choice
because
voting.
it was like kind of the inverse of what you described, Lisa. It's a closed primary. Only Democrats can vote in the primary, but it's ranked choice voting within that closed primary. And Mamdani ran a ranked choice campaign, and Cuomo did not.
Right.
So it wasn't
he
even
had an alignment with another candidate.
right, and
sort
they
of
did this thing. They
strategic-
did this brilliant thing. He and Brad Lander, where they did this handshake, and they did a bunch of social media about it. And they basically, decided if you prefer Lander, rank Mamdani second, and vice versa. And so they helped each other out. And one of the big takeaways, because I asked a question on this thing, because I want to, I'm still learning about it too as a voter. They were basically like, yeah, Cuomo did not run a ranked choice campaign. He ran a completely traditional campaign. So in terms of as a tool, for how you run a specific thing, it's not going to be the same. Just
There's
like
different
when you do
strategies.
social media and people
Exactly.
do one clip for every platform, it's like, but they're different. Well, so back to the point about the educational campaign, I think there's basically, there's the larger voter education, which we obviously want people to take away from this for sure, especially as there's going to be another round of ballot initiatives. And Alaska still has to defend what they've voted for. So they think that this last run will be the last time they have to defend it. But it is coming up again in 26. They'll have to vote again. To keep the reform. So there's a national voter education strategy around it, but then specifically for students, which is one of the reasons why the main reason why we're here, is we think it's a really incredible tool, especially the 30-minute version for teaching. There's been an entire suite of teaching tools for both high school and college level professors who, again, even if you personally do not think that this is the reform, and there are, I think after the era we're living through, successful politicians will have to be pro-reform on a number of things. There's Citizens United, there's what's happening with gerrymandering. This is just one of the things. It's not the only thing that's going to unstick us, but it's a great tool for having the conversation. What is the right reform? Is this the right one? Would it be the right one for our community? Should we be working on other things? So we really want people, but especially students, to understand that this is a reform movement that you can be a part of, like Ruby became a part of. Yeah. Whether you go as far as you went, which obviously would be incredible, but whether you work on a campaign or not, this is happening. It's a reform that's going to happen more and more, I believe, all over the country. if you're a politician or a campaign operative, you need to know how to run that type of campaign and message on that type of campaign. And if you're an activist who wants to bring it locally, you know, you couldn't ask for a better example than Lisa and Ruby and the other people outlined in the film. And then there's a whole sort of suite of kind of Q&A tools and teaching tools. So yeah, we're just trying to get as many students to see it as possible, both high school and college level.
That's great. I want to talk about the role that ranked choice voting might have on opening the aperture more for women. You saw Senator Lisa Murkowski in this film, and we also had her here on campus for an event that we did with her last week, and we talked specifically about this issue as well. So I just want to play a little clip of that, and we can talk more about it on the other end.
It really opens up opportunities for those who are not your typical candidate with the perfect resume. So whether you are a woman, a young person, somebody who doesn't have great personal wealth, you're not going to be able to fund your campaign yourself. And so it really does allow for wider participation, I think, which I think is healthy.
Ruby, I know there's some research on this.
Yes.
What does the research tell us?
Absolutely. So research that was done in part by Represent Women, which is an amazing organization working to advance gender parity in politics. The two biggest reasons that ranked choice voting works to elect more women and minority candidates as a whole. The first one we'll start is it eliminates the concept of a spoiler candidate or of the possibility of women splitting the vote. Very often, if there's already a woman in the race, another woman is told to wait her turn, saying that they don't want to take the vote away from that candidate that's already in the race. Or sometimes, you know, if you're challenging or considering challenging someone who's already not even an incumbent, but someone who is more solidified in the party, someone who is seen as more electable, women are very often told to wait their turn. And with a ranked choice voting election, you can have multiple candidates on the ballot. So you're not splitting the vote, you're not taking the vote away from another female candidate. It actually has, allowed more women to get into the race, but allows more women to win because people are a lot more comfortable voting their values when they kind of have a backup option. Something that we, talked about in DC was that with ranked choice voting, you don't have to vote for who you think is going to win. You get to vote for who you want to win.
Right, it sort of takes the punditry out of your vote.
Exactly. So you don't need to vote strategically. You don't need to think, who has the best choice, If like in a presidential cycle, if you really want an independent candidate to win, but you know the Democrat has a better choice, you can rank that independent candidate first and the Democrat second, and your vote isn't wasted. And so that's one big reason. Another reason is hostility in campaigning.
Yes.
We know, attack ads get messy, even when they're between, white straight men who have been in politics for 50 years. And then that gets even more intense when it gets, on the topic of women, especially women of color. The amount of conversation I've heard, especially in Virginia races recently, about what people were wearing, what bag they had. Did they stumble of where to put their purse down at a speech? With ranked choice voting, it actually harms you to attack your opponent. You want to be campaigning to their base. You want their base to rank you second. Like you were talking about with Mamdani and Lander in New York, they cross-endorsed each other. They said, this is where we differ, but these are a lot of points where we share the same ideology, the same values. If you agree with these, I would like to ask you to rank me second on this campaign. And so this will, make elections a lot less expensive because it takes a lot more money for women to run, but also will alleviate some of these, hostile and sexist attack ads because you actually are trying to campaign to your opponent's audience.
And there's some accountability for people that run very opposition campaigns.
Exactly.
Yeah. They will go down on the list of ranking because people are not seeing them very favorably at all.
Yes.
They will be the pineapple pizza or the liver and onions.
Exactly.
Right.
And we've seen this in effect. I mean, in New York, after ranked choice voting was instituted in 2021, women's representation tripled. In 2022, New York City got their first women majority city council. And so this is not just true of New York. Those are the statistics that I know the most from being from the region, but this has been proven to be true everywhere. And we saw in Alaska, Mary Peltola, first Indigenous woman elected to the House, she won with ranked choice voting. So, I mean, it's been clearly demonstrated. It's incredible.
Great. Well, I wanted to save some time for your questions. So does anyone have a question for the panel? Don't be shy. Susanna's class.
I don't bite.
Yeah. Yes. We'll bring the mic to you.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
For this. Okay. Well, Melinda, I was glad you mentioned gerrymandering because my question is about whether, I mean, it's not mentioned at least in the half-hour version, maybe in the longer version, but of course the reason 87% of districts are safe is because of gerrymandering by and large. And so is the hope that as more states pick up ranked choice voting reforms, that will lead to more, again, like these, more bipartisan efforts and hopefully then open up opportunities for reforms around gerrymandering and getting more fair systems across the board?
Good question. Lisa?
Well, one of the reforms that Unite America supports is independent redistricting. So we are in favor of independent panels redistricting by not by parties. And I will say that in this cycle, of course, that has become a pipe dream, but we're sticking with it because we know that ultimately will help our democracy. This downward spiral right now that we're seeing that's coming from the states, Texas, California, I mean, name a few more, it may deliver some short-term victories. It may deliver what the president wants. This president won't be around forever, and we will have a system that we all need to live with. And so we're still working toward independent redistricting. That helps in that way. Ranked choice voting, it's tough. It's tough when the districts are so heavily safe, but with opening primaries, which is why we really, really love the idea, the concept, and the reality of opening primaries, when people start to understand that the primary is where things are decided, and when more people can vote in primaries, then you start to get people who are freed from campaigning to and governing only for the extremes. I can use DC as an example, and I've talked to a couple of council members very recently. They're disappointed that the semi-open primaries didn't get funded in DC. It's law, but it needs to be funded by the council. And I was meeting with a council member who's getting ready to run for a citywide office. And that person was saying, I don't understand why more people don't want this. I said, yeah, if I were running citywide, I would love to have the opportunity to campaign to 85,000 more people, right? I'm one of 85,000 that can't vote in a primary here in DC. We would love to change that.
Explain the funding mechanism.
So, good question. So the first part is the ballot initiative. The people vote on it, it's law. And in DC, whether the law is passed by the mayor, the council, or voter initiative, in DC it has to go to Capitol Hill and survive a review process. We survived that, we came back, we're law. Because it costs money to implement these initiatives, this initiative, it has to be budgeted for by the council. In this very tough budget cycle, and it's not very expensive, but ranked choice voting was less expensive than the semi-open primaries. So folks in the council were able to cobble up some funds, bring some funds together to be able to finance the ranked choice voting part.
Is that voter education?
It's
primarily?
It's
Okay.
voter education and some systems changes,
Okay.
et cetera.
But I also just want to push back slightly, which is that it's not only because of not the 87% safe seats at the federal congressional level, many of those are because they're gerrymandered seats, but it's not the case for every seat and every race. And it's not the case in cities like New York and DC or Alaska for that matter. There's just more Republicans in Alaska. There's just more Democrats in DC and New York. It's, anytime you're sort of dealing with a one-party system, whatever the reason, it needs to be, it's going to become sclerotic, and it's going to stop serving the needs of even that. I mean, I think we're seeing this play out like in Maine. Even when you have a primary system, you still have intra-party friction.
Yes.
And, that you often end up, even within that one party, going to an extreme for reasons that have nothing to do with getting stuff done for voters. So, any reform, you're not wrong, but it's not the only reason.
Yeah.
Right. It's not.
But-
There are lots of things
Yeah.
that
Yes.
contribute to the dysfunction.
Exactly.
And it changes conduct in office, because once someone is elected, who they're accountable to
Exactly.
is very different in
And
this
how
kind
they're
of system.
how they're treated by the voters for working across the aisle or
Yeah.
not.
Even the
whether they're
example in the
punished or
f-
whether
yeah.
they're given a pass for that, or people are
Yeah,
happy with it.
in the film when Kathy Giesel was like, "I'm not going to on all the doors now," right? Like she had never done that before,
Right, and be yelled at by everybody
Exactly.
instead of just Republicans.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. Who else? Yes. We'll get the mic to you.
Thank you, and thank you for this panel. I don't quite understand a part of the ranked choice voting. You said some people can rank just 2 people. Well, if you have 5 candidates or 6 candidates or whatever, how is that going to skew the vote or affect the vote if many people only vote for 2 or 1? Or I don't quite understand how that plays out
Yeah.
if you need to rank 5 or 6 people. And also, many times it's hard to get enough information about candidates, and so some of those other candidates are sort of just, I think this is the least worst. But
Right.
that's a bit of a problem when you're trying to get full information.
And there's
but
two
mostly-
different systems, right, on the primary. There's an open primary, which we saw in the film, where you just pick the top 4, and then there's this ranked primary, and you're saying,
Right.
how do we
If
know?
we're using the the ranked
Yes.
choice system, how does that work if every voter doesn't rank the
Yeah.
Yes.
potential candidate?
Good question.
Absolutely. So, first thing I will say is a big part of, just to kind of the second part of your question first. I know we're going backwards. It's hard to get information about every candidate. Actually, ranked choice voting forces candidates to campaign to beyond that small voter base that can get them elected. What we've seen in DC is it's a documented campaign tactic not to campaign at all to voters east of the river, because people know that they can get elected with a small, voter base that has elected them time and time again. And that means that people east of the river, their wants, needs, priorities have not been reflected in their elected officials. And so with ranked choice voting, their, council members, candidates for council will be forced to, campaign to everyone, knock on every door, as we saw, in the clip of, she was saying, "I'm knocking on so many doors now." It provides both the opportunity and incentive to campaign to as many people as possible. In terms of ranking the vote, you do not have to rank off. So in DC, we have top 5. So you get to rank up to 5 candidates. It just gives you enough backup options, So let's say if you only rank 2 candidates, your first candidate has the lowest number of votes, so your vote gets reallocated to your second. If your second candidate still, is dropped off the ballot, like has a second, lowest number of votes, then you just don't get those other options. For people who rank, up to 5, they just get to ensure that their vote is heard, or their choice is heard every round of that cycle until you get to 50%. So it just, ranking up to 5 does help you, make sure that your vote is counted each time, each cycle, but it's not required. And so it doesn't necessarily skew anything. It's just if you rank more options, you kind of ensure that your choice is heard cycle after cycle. If not, you just run the risk of, if your candidate is not, if your candidates that you picked are the lowest ones, then you're just dropped off after you're done ranking.
But your ballot doesn't get thrown out.
Exactly.
On the flip side, though, I mean, one of the arguments against this is on the actual, ranked choice. What happens if somebody accidentally puts somebody number one twice, right? Like the frequency of ballots getting tossed out because of maybe lack of voter education or somebody getting confused. It's a little more difficult ballot to fill out, right? So if you are voting and you vote, two number ones, and that ballot would be tossed, right?
I actually don't know the research on this, although
Yeah.
it's a really interesting question. I would guess, if I had to, maybe you guys know more research, I would guess that there is no more mistakes and ballots getting thrown out with ranked choice than with regular generic voting. I don't know. It's totally
It'd be
intuitive.
interesting. I think as more and more, there would probably be more research on this as
I mean,
it's
we lived,
adopted more.
Betsy and I
Yeah,
covered
we
the
lived
hanging
through
chads of 2000. So we're traumatized by regular voting.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for that question. Who else? All right, Susanna's class. Do you want me to call on one of you? I'm going to play teacher for a minute. Yes. Okay, good. We got one. Next.
What states do you think will be next?
Right.
Just curious.
I think that there's a good chance that Nevada will come along. Nevada has a constitutional process, and it has to be approved twice. So it was approved, what year was it? Was approved in 2022. It did not win in 2024, so they're going back. I'm not sure how they'll do their process, but I think that Nevada may be a place where we see something very similar to Alaska sooner rather than later. I'm not. What do you think about
Colorado is really interesting. They almost passed in 24. There's a campaign called Courageous Colorado that's restarting now, or that's being formed now. They just did like a huge listening tour. So I think Colorado. I mean, New York, interestingly, because it's been successful in the city, but it's really stuck at the state level. But I think it could happen in New York because because the city is so important, obviously, that there's a Unite New York is a great offshoot group that is pushing it forward. So yeah, those three I think are good contenders.
I would look at Nevada for sure. I'm not sure what might happen in New Mexico. New Mexico just won fully open primaries. I'm not sure if there will be a push to then integrate ranked choice voting into the voting system, but that's something that could then look similar. But I really, my money would be that Nevada and Colorado are the places to look next.
And also, there are a lot of initiatives that are not necessarily at the state level, but are at local levels. So that's like the Bay Area in California has ranked choice voting. Right now, Santa Fe, New Mexico has ranked choice voting in the way that New York City has ranked choice voting, but New York State, right now there's a ballot initiative in Greenbelt, Maryland, so not too far from here for ranked choice voting. So I think that we're going to see, if not as fast at the state level, all these small little initiatives, not little, but local initiatives being popping up and winning. Even in states where ranked choice voting is banned, there have been towns that have adopted resolutions in support of ranked choice voting. And so that is something that I think is really exciting. And if we're talking about students getting into ranked choice voting and opportunities, there are, federal initiatives like the Voter Choice Act or the Fair Representation Act that you are welcome, and I would encourage people to reach out to their, members and senators about. However, there's also in your hometown, see if there's a listening committee. See if, your state has a listening committee, or if there's county, district, anything that's considering it, because that is a lot easier to pass, I would say, than a full state campaign.
For sure. Well, to that point, Lisa, how do you all think about, just from an advocacy perspective, keeping that momentum going?
One of the things that we learned after 2024, and I'm speaking we Unite America, looking at this from a national perspective, is that in order to win, and again, DC was the only place that won in 2024, in order to win, there needs to be a ground game that is rooted in the community. The community has to want the change. It cannot be people coming in from on high saying, this will be visited upon you. It has to be the people, and in DC, there are many, many people who are disaffected and, quite frankly, really ticked off at the folks sitting on the council. Again, I'm reminding you, there are people sitting on that council that only got 26 or 35% of the vote of the tiny slice of primary voters. And so talking to voters in DC over time, here we have something that we think might help. So it has, but it has to be from the ground up. And I think that the overall national movement really came to a reckoning with so many losses in 24. Why did we lose? Well, tell me who you talked to on the ground. Tell me what communities you went into to educate. People keep telling me that ranked choice voting is too confusing. My answer to that is when you're in the community and you're educating people and they realize, oh, wait a minute, I do this every day. And then you have the ballot. Like I said, we didn't go anywhere without either a paper or an electronic ballot or simulation. And when you educate in this way, people, there's a light bulb that goes off and they go, oh, wait a minute, it's not that hard.
Yeah. Melinda, I'll give you the final word on this.
I was going to say is I do think that was a huge learning, and you saw it in Alaska. They were super concerned about this is an Alaskan reform. It's not a national movement being pushed on us. And that's definitely been true in the states where or the cities where it's been successful. It's been really, we all know this, every political movement that's successful is grassroots, right? Nobody wants to feel that somebody's coming in from outside the state and pushing something, whether it's, whatever it is, onto them. And so the Courageous Colorado campaign is being run by a guy who's very well known in Colorado. Like, that's important to have it feel that it's coming from within. But I agree, once that happens, I hope that this is part of a larger movement for reform of, fixing our democracy that very clearly needs to be fixed from a bunch of different fronts. And, this is one way to do it that is really exciting and interesting.
Well, thank you all for the work that you all are doing. And thanks, everybody, for coming. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Have a great afternoon.
Angle this way now, you still get the sign in the picture. Okay, here we go. Ready, set, say rank.